Two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
These two guys, in this case, would be Judd and Declan. Phil out today taking care of some personal family business. But it is an OG Write That Down Wednesday, and that means we've got Write That Down predictions from me, from Declan. Phil actually has his 3 predictions pre-recorded. Mike will join us in just a moment, and we will start. But before we do that, unfortunately, Declan, we keep track of our predictions. And as I won't spoil this, but as we saw on the PD version of Write That Down today, sometimes keeping track of the predictions is a great idea. And sometimes, as we saw today, it's not a great idea because we basically out ourselves to our bosses about how lousy all 3 of us can be at predictions. So tell me that on the OG version of Write That Down, the news is better, at least for Sports Dad.
Let's see what happens here on the OG edition. Yeah, we had a lot of red on the Purple Daily edition with 53-man rosters being set and whatnot. So go check that out on the Purple Daily podcast feed and YouTube channel to see how wrong we were. This, of course, is the OG edition of Write That Down, where we keep track of batting average and home runs. If you'd like to participate, shoot me a note via the Score North app. You can also DM me on Twitter at Dex's Tweets. We are booked through the month of September, so we do have openings starting in October. So hit me up if you'd like to come on a future episode of Write That Down. So the Sports Dad wants to know how well he did on the OG edition.
I'm hoping.
Not a bad week.
Okay, I can take it. It's only 2 things. It's only 2 things, and there's 1 green.
You said Brian Flores would be a head coach in 2024.
That's very old, and that was I should have known that the lawsuit wouldn't be done. And that's a year before Tua came out and said he's a terrible person. So now I don't think he's going to get a head coaching job again.
Probably not. You did say, though, Sonny Gray will be credited with a loss in his start against the Twins over the weekend.
Yes.
Credited.
Yes. And he looked great. In the first, I think he struck out the side. In the second, I think he was still good. And I think it was the third. The Twins hammered him. Absolutely hammered him to get 1 of 3 from the Cardinals. So,
okay, it's not a bad week.
Spot on there. Spot on.
All right, Macadac, little home run here. He said the Twins' offense would score at least 8 runs on Wednesday against the Padres. Very specific prediction.
Yeah, that's a home run.
Enough for a home run. So a nice little tater-tot shot there for Macadac, who will join us via satellite here shortly. The listeners, another home run prediction. Andy said Trevor Richard would be DFA'd by the end of the season. The specific nature of that also good enough for a home run.
When was
Bravo
that made?
From Andy. What?
I said, when did he come out and make that prediction?
Probably right after the deadline.
I mean, that's a hell of a prediction.
Yep. So Trevor Richards DFA'd did not last about more than a month here with the Twins.
Correct.
Still on the board from Mike, who says Matt Corral will go on to have the most successful career of any quarterback in the 2022 draft class, and the metric being touchdown passes. Corral spent the second half playing for the Vikings.
I think we could take this off
Eagles.
the board. I'm just going to go out on a limb right now. I think this can come off the board because Corral now is not employed again. And I think we can safely say he's not going to have the most successful quarterback career of a quarterback in that 2022 draft.
A little red for me. I said Topa and Brock Stewart will both be active at the same time in the Twins bullpen before September 1st. Brock Stewart was active before Topa. Topa was tracking to join him. Brock Stewart done for the year. And Justin Topa was alive and well in the clubhouse, I think throwing a mini bullpen or doing something on the field yesterday. I did see him in the locker room.
Is he going to pitch this year?
I don't know.
I mean, every time we think he's close, it started off with his knee, right?
Yep.
And now it's his shoulder.
Yep.
So to the fan base, Justin Topa doesn't exist.
Correct.
It's this fictional character. And by the way, has there been a worse trade for 2 teams than that M's Twins trade?
Yeah, it was.
Polanco's done nothing.
Yeah. Gabriel Gonzalez, the prospect the Twins got, is really probably going to be the only saving grace of that. And who knows? Maybe Gonzalez is also a trade piece that helps you get something. Maybe he matures into the hitter he's supposed to be with the Twins, but that's probably the only shine on that turd sandwich there.
Oh,
so.
God.
All right, one more, or I should say the statistics on the year. Mackey leading a 400 batting average. Mackey batting 400 on the OG edition.
Still struggling.
I'll write that down with 8 bombs. I'm behind him, 372 with 7 bombs. Listeners, though, up to 10 home runs. They are leading the pack at 368. Judd at the bottom, 337 with 7 bombs, but collectively still a very strong start to the OG edition of Right. We're about halfway through the season. We go
I need
Super
the listeners
Bowl
to struggle.
Super Bowl. Yeah.
I need the listeners to start to try to hit grand slams. Let's go back to the old days.
All time, I lead 362. Listeners lead all time with 65 home runs. Judd leads all time in career hits with 337.
All
right. That's your accountability session here on the OG edition of Write That Down. Let's get our guy Mike in here. Mike, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing great, fellas. Thanks for having me.
So I see that you've got the fantastic 1987 Star Tribune Magic cover there. It looks like, is that a World Series?
91, bringing it.
91?
Yeah,
91. Yeah. So when did you become a Minnesota sports fan?
Well, I mean, I was born in the early 80s, so I've been a sports fan my entire life. My mom and dad were huge sports fans, especially the Twins and the Gophers, football and basketball especially. So those are kind of my 3 main sports. I do follow the Vikings and Timberwolves, but I mean, life gets in the way, so I can't follow everything anymore. So
Gopher football, I think it's fun, but with the changes now and going to the 18-team Big Ten, I don't like. To me, it's just fun, but what's the point? It's like the Big Ten West at least presented this illusion of, hey, they could win it. They could win it. Now, I just don't know what the expectation can be.
Right. I don't know what the top of the mountain is for the program. Is it making that 12-team playoff or what?
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be taking an incredible year to do so. So it's hard to know what this team can aspire to be in the state of the Big Ten and college football in general.
Gopher basketball is sad because I was a 90s Clem guy, and that was so much fun. And this program has now been, I mean, they've made the tournament occasionally, but I've always said this, and I will say this to my dying day, Williams Arena, when it was packed in the Clem years, was the funnest building to be in. It was great. And so this is sad because that place now is empty a lot of times.
Right. We've had season tickets since the Clem days. And I remember back in the day with the big winter coats and the benches. And if you stood up and you tried to sit down, you may not have a spot to sit anymore. That's how packed the place was. Best ticket in town when they're hot. I agree with you.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to the predictions. We'll start with Mike. Then it'll be me, Declan, Phil recorded, and we will then go around the room a couple more.
All right. So I'm a massive supporter of PJ Fleck. I think that they have consistently been in the top half of the Big Ten since he's been here. Nearly always competitive. Kids going to the NFL. They're getting the local kids. Kids are going to class. The grades are great, which is still important, I think. And they're staying out of trouble, at least as far as we know, or they're covering up their trouble better than they did in previous administrations. In 2024, I think they're sitting on a 7-5, 6-6 type season, even with the brutal schedule. I think the QB is going to be legit. I think he may have a top 10 passing season in Gopher history. That does not say a lot, quite frankly, numbers.
Right.
But I think the running game is always going to be there under PJ. Offensive line should be solid, and the D line should be solid. So I say with some moderate success, my write this down is that in 2024, it will be PJ Fleck's last season as head coach at the University of Minnesota. He will be leaving on his own accord. His buyout is somewhere between $7 and $10 million. So some school will have to pay the U that. There was a lot of rumors last offseason that he was sniffing around, especially with that UCLA job. I believe that those are true. So I think 2024 will be PJ Fleck's last season as University of Minnesota head coach.
Off the record, where do you think he goes?
I think it's probably to some school that we would think that is lesser than Minnesota, but is going to pay him more. So maybe some lower tier SEC school or something like that. Or maybe, I think that's probably the best chance he's going to have. I don't know if he'd move within conference, but who knows? The conference is so bleeping big now that there's a lot of opportunity in that space as well.
Interesting. All right. In fact, I will stay on the Gopher prediction thread. Thursday night, they play North Carolina at Huntington Bank Stadium. And as Mike said, they have a new quarterback. That is Max Brosmer, who will throw, Declan, 2 or more touchdowns against North Carolina on Thursday. So I think he comes out of the gates. I think that I know they love to run. I know PJ loves to run. But I also think that part of the philosophy a year ago was they lost complete faith in the quarterback.
Yeah.
They're going to start off, I think, with at least showing more faith. So Max Brosmer throws at least 2 touchdowns on Thursday night, Dex.
I like it. Sky Row the boat, go Gophers. Write this down. The Twins will acquire another pitcher between now and the end of the month. And by pitcher, I mean a credible one with at least 100 games played. They need more arms. Michael Tonkin, I don't think, cuts it. So
Off the record, who?
He doesn't.
Off the record, who?
I don't know. I know Nick Anderson just signed, but they're going to scrap heap the waiver wire. They're going to find someone off the street. I don't know who, but they need more arms. No, because I don't think they're going to pick up the $4 million he's basically owed for the rest of the year. So I don't think it's Smiley.
All right. Well, go Twins for that. Good move.
Twins for that.
Good
Twin
move
show.
if you get a credible. I love that it is that you have to use the word credible.
Yeah. Score North Twin show later today for a dissection of what's going on lately. Let's go to Mackey for his first prediction.
Mackey via satellite here, making these predictions on a Write That Down Wednesday. I'm sorry I can't be hanging out with you guys on this live recording. I'm going to go hang out with my grandfather who's not doing so well. Going to hang out with some family here today. So I'll be back in the mix on Thursday for Reckless Speculation Thursday and Purple Daily. But let's make some predictions here, starting with this one. Cowboys, 49ers, Lions, and Eagles had the 4 best records in the NFC last year. At least 2 of those teams will not make the playoffs in 2024. So Cowboys, 49ers, Lions, Eagles, at least 2 of those teams will not make the playoffs. Write it down.
Interesting. San Francisco, I will say, is facing a lot of weird and has faced a lot of weird training camp turmoil, which is not a good sign. And Philadelphia is a weird one.
Yeah.
Like, is Sirianni a good coach? Or were the coordinators a couple of years ago so good that they elevated him, they left, and then the team went down? Or I shouldn't say that. Team played great, and then they went in the crapper. So, all right. Let's go back to Mike for his second prediction.
All right, go for basketball. So Big Ten obviously is expanding to 18 teams with only 15 teams making the Big Ten tournament going forward. That's an odd number, but I looked it up, fact checked that it is 15 teams. I think the Gophers roster could have been special if they would have kept Christie, Payne, and the guy who promoted this hat on Twitter and then 10 days later left the program, which I'm still bitter about. Therefore, my write this down is twofold. The 2024-25 Gophers will miss the Big Ten tournament, and Ben Johnson will be fired at the end of the year. I think Coyle and company are going to be willing to do this in part because of new TV revenue, because of the expanded conference, and in part tying to my previous write this down, they're going to get some money for PJ Fleck walking at the end of the year. So it's a connection between the two writes this downs for you on the Gopher side here.
Mike, I am very proud of you because when you started and said, that you were a Fleck fan, blah, 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 I thought we're going to get positivity. We're going to get Maroon and Gold. And you so far predicted PJ Fleck's going to leave and Ben Johnson's going to be fired. I am very proud.
Hey, thanks, Judd. Appreciate that.
I'm a proud sports dad right now. That is awesome.
I'm not sure my dad would be proud, but that's a different story.
That's okay. That's okay. But yeah, and just on your point too, again, college basketball, and the Gophers, I used to love them. But to your point about the roster, like, how do you have an allegiance to a team?
Can't.
No, and in Ben's defense, poor Ben, right? He finally got like a roster. He worked his ass off, I'm sure. And then this, the whole thing was, hey, we'll pay you more, and the kid leaves. So I don't even know that I would want to coach college hoops now, unless I was at just a total blue blood school.
Right.
It's that depressing. So, all right. I'm going to switch to the Twins thread, Declan Goff. Write this down. He has been slumping of late, so Royce Lewis, don't tell us you don't slump, because you do. It's okay, you're a baseball player. All baseball players slump. But I think he's going to get on the right track. Royce will hit 3 or more home runs between tonight, so the Wednesday night game against the Braves, and next week's Write That Down.
Wow.
He'll hit 3 or more home runs. He can be streaky, and his at-bats last night looked pretty bad.
He almost parked one on that foul ball.
But he did, yes.
Yeah.
And I got a feeling that he is going to rebound strong here. Sure. And so he will hit 3 or more home runs starting with tonight's game against the Braves and then going through next Tuesday, Declan.
I like it. All right, I'll make another Twins prediction to write this down. The Twins will have a 3-game winning streak at some point between now and next week's. Write that down. So the losing stops, and some combination of a 3-game winning streak happens. Yep, between now and next week's. Write that down. So as long as they hit 3 straight wins at any point between now and next Wednesday's accountability session, this will come off the board. Let's go to Mackey. Prediction number 2.
Okay, write this down. This one should come off the board pretty quickly here. But our guy Lewis Cine, who was waived by the Vikings, did not make their 53-man roster. Lewis Cine will sign with another team's practice squad. He will not be claimed and put on a 53-man roster, at least with the first transaction. So he will land with another team's practice squad sometime this week or next week. Actually, I'm just going to leave. We'll say sometime before week 1. Sometime before the first game's kickoff. Write it down.
Dallas, right? I mean, Zimmer's claiming Vikings left and right. It's incredible.
Just to stick it to him.
Yeah, I think that is just to be clear too. Unfortunately, for Cine, that is not a home run. That won't be surprising at all if he does not get immediately gobbled up and claimed. All right, let's go back to Mike for his third and final prediction.
All right, going to close with some positivity here. I heard all that negative talk earlier, so we got to wrap this.
I loved your first 2 predictions, dude. I'm not lying.
This one might be a stretch, but we'll see. So, I mean, obviously, I think we've all talked. You guys have been talking about in the show. We like the Twins in 2024, but they just lack the pitching. So even if they make the playoffs, they're probably not going to go very far with the bullpen that they have in place. Their lineup is fantastic. I think it's the best lineup they've had since 2010, with Morneau in that July time frame. I mean, J.J. Hardy batted 9th in that lineup. That lineup was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I think that they're going to struggle. But I think that they're going to struggle if they make the playoffs. But I do think that the administration, or I hope that the administration, sees that they have a window here to win. So my write this down is that the Twins will either sign or re-sign a player for an average salary of $15 million a year this offseason. So that could be a Royce extension for $15 million a year, or could they go out and sign a pitcher or somebody else for $15 million a year? They're going to have, I hope they're going to have more money. I know, Judd, you've documented greatly about the TV struggles that they have, but hopefully they're going to have a long-term contract that'll give them some certainty. Plus they got Farmer, Kepler, Santana probably coming off the books. They'll have some money to spend this offseason. I think they're going to go big on a pitcher or re-sign one of their core players.
I hope you're right. I think you're wrong.
Yeah.
I think they're going to, I actually think that they're probably going to, if they're smart for a long-term PR play, I think they're going to leave Diamond Sports Group, aka Bally Sports North, altogether. And I think they're going to get in bed with baseball to produce their telecasts. And that sort of kills rights fees right there.
Sure.
In fact, you know what? I'm going to counter you on my next prediction. But before that, before we say goodbye, who do you have to thank in the long line for being hold on a second, Twins fan? Not too bad, because you saw 2 championships there. But Gopher football and Gopher basketball, who would you like to thank for roping you into that?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So three groups here. So my dad and my late mom, they were massive sports fans, especially on the 3 sports you just mentioned, Judd. So huge homers. I love them for it. They're the reason I am the fan I am today, and I've felt the pain that you just well documented over the years. I have an uncle that I'd like to thank as well. He's provided access to a ton of cool events over the years. Front row at the Dome for Twins games, WWF at the Met Center back in the day, which is awesome, and suites at various events. Yeah, it was.
I was there for one of those.
Cage match, Hogan, Mr. Perfect, right before WrestleMania 6. It was awesome.
Wow,
that's awesome.
And then I'd like to also thank my wife. So we have a special needs daughter at home that requires 24/7 attention, but she still allows me to go out with the boys, go to games, even travel to go to some games. So really appreciative of her for that. And she is kind of a local sports celebrity. She was part of the those University of Minnesota dance teams in the early 2000s that started off their run of multiple national championships. So she's got some acclaim to her. She's got her name up in the M Club at the U at the stadium. So every time I go in there, I try to brag that somehow I outpunted my coverage and married her. So
we all did.
We all did, man. We all did.
We all did. Well, thanks, Mike. Great stuff. And if your first 2 predictions turn out to be right, we will bring you back on and praise you.
All right.
Because
I'll hold you to that.
PJ Fleck walking away and Ben Johnson being fired is quite the parlay prediction. So, all right, man. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the opportunity. Take care.
Yep.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Mike. Great predictions.
That's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. I swear to God, I thought he's going to come out with, PJ Fleck's going to be coach of the year in the Big Ten. He's like, no, he's going to walk away after the season. All right. As promised, to counter Mike's prediction,
Yep.
the Twins opening day payroll in 2025 will be less than it was in 2024. So it dropped by $35 million.
Sounds right.
I want to say it's going to drop again. Not by that much, probably, but it's going to drop again because I do believe that if they're smart, they are not going to just take the check from Bally's because that's just a disaster. But it's also going to mean a loss almost certainly of the limited, in their mind, it's not terrible, revenue that they got TV-wise this year. Twins payroll goes down again in 2025 compared to 2024, Dex.
Ugh. Well, Twins fans, you want to go see Twins games at Target Field this weekend against
the payroll's
Blue Jays.
huge.
Maybe if you're staying in town for Labor Day weekend, go to twins.com/tickets plus some big series coming up in September. Last series of the year against Baltimore, man. That could be jockey in position right there for all those teams. So that might come down right to the wire. Twins.com/tickets. And if you like to watch the Twins games at home, which now you can do easier than earlier this season.
You can't stream them, but you can watch them on Comcast.
Or you find other ways like old Dex Tweets does. Why don't you do that on a Roku TV? In fact, I need a Roku TV specifically to use the means I do to watch my Twins games and to watch television. Right now on the Score North app, you can win a Roku TV by going to Listener Rewards. Go to Listener Rewards on the Score North app to win yourself a fancy brand new Roku TV.
God, that's a good picture.
It is good. I love my Roku TVs. They're great. Write this down. You and I were talking about this on Sunday in the press box when you watched the Cardinals finale. Mm-hmm. You said, in fact, I think you also wrote about this maybe at judzolgadsubstack.com. You said the Twins would be wise to consider an extension for Willie Castro this offseason, who's starting to price himself up a little bit.
What I said was they're either they are going to have to do an extension because he is arbitration eligible for the last time.
Yeah.
And he will kill them there.
Yeah.
So like if they're going to keep him, do a 3-year extension.
So in that spirit of this prediction, I will counter that, especially with some cheap poll ads.
I do like this.
Write this down. The Twins will trade Willie Castro this offseason. Maybe you just cash in on his peak value. I like Willie. He's versatile. Rocco loves him.
Right.
But maybe you cash in on a peak player who you know down the line you're not going to be able to afford.
Right.
And you're trying to penny pinch every way you can. He could get you a nice return. So write this down. The Twins trade Willie Castro this offseason.
So I got a question off of that as the guy who is a beat podcaster and watches a ton of games now for the Twins. Who is he? Like, is he the guy that failed in Detroit? Like, well, and I asked this because, and you pointed this out, I didn't realize it until I did the math. He's played shortstop pretty much exclusively since Correa got hurt. And he had a nice night last night, but I assumed, he still has hit the ball well since the All-Star game. Well, when I did the math through Saturday's games on Sunday, his average had taken a dip. He was, and your point was, he really has not hit. So here's my question. Who is he, do you think?
He's a very nice, versatile player who can play multiple positions and is, a slightly above average hitter at best.
Okay.
His glove is what.
So this is sort of the peak of Castro.
Yeah, I don't think there's another level.
Okay.
No. His glove is what sets him apart, where he can play multiple positions.
So beyond being cheap, though, if that's the case, I mean, your assessment might be right then. Like, if you can maximize him, it's probably not a bad idea.
Maximize it. You have Wallner and Larnick who can play the outfield spots. You have a surplus in the infield between Brooks, Royce, obviously, who am I missing here? Correa. Thank you, God. Correa.
Yeah.
Eddie Julian still part of their plans. Like
Miranda can play third. He's not
Miranda
great,
can
but
play
he can play third. And he can hit.
I mean, do you need him?
Well, I think in Rocco's world you do, but my point is, if you just from a pure baseball, so not being cheap, so take the finances out. From a pure baseball standpoint, if you say, okay, we just milked the best year this kid is ever going to have, right? then I think the question becomes, do we try and maximize that? Because here's what I don't want. I don't want him reverting back to being an okay player, and now he's signed to a 3-year contract, and he's eating up payroll on a payroll where I can't afford to have that.
Right.
So I think you might be right.
Yeah, I just there's other players too that are more deserving, and I think you cash in on his peak. Maybe get something nice in return too.
Fair enough. All right. What's a Macadac?
All right, last one from Phil Mackey here on the OG edition. I'm write that down.
Prediction number 3. Write this down. My guess is, particularly Judd, probably making a bunch of negative Twins predictions. Or if he's not, he's definitely thinking about negative Twins thoughts. Twins are on a bit of a slide here. They're like 9-12 in their last 21 games. It's okay. You're going to go through slumps. You're going to go through dry spells. You're going to lose some games in a baseball season. So write this down. The pendulum will swing back the other way for the Minnesota Twins. Between now and the end of the season, the Twins at some point will rattle off at least a 5-game winning streak. So at least maybe it's 6. Maybe it's 9. But they will rattle off at least 5 consecutive wins before the end of the season. Write this down. Speaking of, if that happens, be a fun time to go to Target Field. Twins.com/tickets to go hang out at one of the great ballparks in America. We've got, looks like a little more mild weather, hopefully, on the horizon the next few weeks. Meteorologist Phil here. You can get your tickets at twins.com/tickets. We've got, let's see here, August 31st, Native American Heritage Night. We've got Barbie Game Day on September 1st. Special ticket package includes a ticket to the game and an exclusive Barbie-inspired Twins pink crossbody bag. Perfect for Judd. Twins.com/tickets to take advantage of maybe some glorious stretch run baseball here where they're winning at least 5 consecutive games. Write it down.
They just got 2 spots from us. Mm-hmm. They just got 2 spots from us, which means that they can now afford to pay Castro. Forget my thought and your prediction. Okay, yeah, that's great. 5. Here's my question: who's coming back? If you tell me Correa and Buxton are back, I'm buying what Phil is saying. Like, to me, it all depends. Who's coming back?
Yeah, Buck was hitting in the cage yesterday. In his round, at least. I haven't seen Correa.
And both of them have to come back. Like this is not one can come back. And I would consider, so Buck can change a game. I consider Correa to be the most important guy. And the other thing we saw too, for the love of God, can you please next year have a center fielder who can play there? I know that Michael A. Taylor had a lousy year at the plate. Okay. He was decent here because he had some pop, but Dex, you cannot continue to count on Buxton to play center field. And when he's not there, throw in these guys. I mean, Austin Martin, that ball last night, Buxton catches that. We don't even think about it.
But at the same time, Judd, Buxton's one of like 5 guys that makes that catch. That was a tough catch.
I agree. But
you're not going to find a second guy on your roster that makes that catch.
But Michael A. Taylor was a guy that could make plays like that. You literally have guys playing that position again who don't belong out there.
Yeah.
That's my problem. And look, if Austin Martin works his ass off, perhaps someday he's fine. This assessment that Manuel Margot could play there was ridiculous. He has no ability. I mean, he can play left or right, but that's touchy now, touch and go. And Castro did play there some, was not great, but now is, because Correa's out, he has to play shortstop. I agree that's a tough play, but my point is you've got to have a guy who has played center field consistently. And they always are like, well, if Buxton's healthy, we don't need that. It's like, no, Buxton's never if you think he's going to play an entire year, shame on you, not shame on him. So anyway, you got to come on, just go sign a guy that can play out there, who's played out there before. Margot, my God, poor guy can barely play left half the time.
We'll have a Score North Twin show also on yesterday's Ugly Affair, some other things we learned. We'll talk about that in the Score North Twin show, which you can find on the YouTube side and our podcast feeds. That's the OG edition of Write That Down. Hit the like button, subscribe button. Plenty of great content coming at you. Be talking at you soon.